In this video, I'm going to talk about this block, which is a cross-cut offset block for my rip fence. I've had some people comment that my block is too thin, but I have a different opinion. I think it's just the right size. In this video, I'll show you what I'm talking about. The reason we use a block like this to offset work pieces from our rip fence is because we don't want to put our cross-cut piece all the way against the fence and then get it jammed between the blade and the fence and create a kickback situation. So we put a block between the fence and the workpiece behind the blade so that when we push the workpiece up to the blade, there's clearance between the fence and the workpiece. So the way I use this block is I move it up here towards the blade, and then I measure the distance between the block and the blade and then adjust the fence for the width I need. Then I move the block back and tighten it down. And the criticism of a block being this thin is that as I make the cut, the piece that's off cut, especially really wide pieces, can still twist and the corners can get caught between the blade and the fence. I don't think that's so much of a concern in this configuration because with the miter gauge between the fence and the saw blade, I'm controlling the piece the entire way, and the offcut will actually be on this side of the blade, and there's nothing for this to get pinched on over here. And to quote Scott Markwood, if you're lucky enough to be a Shopsmith owner, we can set up our tables very far out. So we can set up cuts that are really far away to set up very long cross cuts with the miter gauge supporting the keeper piece. And if I wanted to add some additional support, like most table saws, I have the ability to add a fence. And I probably would add an extension to my miter gauge for a piece this long. So now I'm set up for a safe and accurate cut. The board is not pinched between the blade and the fence, and I'm in control of the piece with the miter gauge, especially the pistil handle grip on the Shopsmith, that this board is not going to rotate and get caught between the blade and the fence. But there's another scenario where we may want the miter gauge on the opposite side of the blade to the fence. Let's say that we're making cuts that are so small that there's not enough room between the fence and the blade for the miter gauge. So let's say we wanted to make a cut that's this wide. So yes, in that case, we'd want a little more room between the fence and the blade. But there's a feature that those who have criticized my block have not paid attention to. That is, I can turn my block perpendicular to the blade and fasten it like that. So now I have plenty of room between the blade and the fence to make any cut I want, any width I want, without it pinching between the blade and the fence. So let me give you a close-up of this block. I like these Milescraft fence clamps with the square body, and you can change the depth to have a lot more variety. There's other brands of this type besides Milescraft. One thing I like about it is the square body registers against the fence. So this is nothing more than two pieces of scrap poplar, 19mm poplar, laminated together. It's about 54 millimeters wide, and I've done nothing more than square the ends and drill two holes in here with enough accommodation for the clamps. I can either clamp it in this orientation or this orientation, and I can even hang it way back off the fence for those really wide boards to give me plenty of room from the end of the block to the start of the blade. So that's my opinion for this design regarding the crosscut offset block. Of course, opinions vary, and I'd like to hear from you. What do you think of this block? Does it provide enough functionality to safely do equal length crosscuts?